So what I'm doing here is we were getting ready to deliver this car, and it's going out of state. And as we were getting ready to do the final detail job on it, which is go around it and find all the imperfections, do the final wax job on it and all that, I came across this little section right here where the rear sail panel meets the quarter panel, and I found some imperfections on that are going to need repainting. There's no way out of it, and it's going to have to be done. So what the issue was is, for some reason, there were some very minor small bubbles right there, and it's probably from poor prepping in that area, that we didn't prep it properly. So you're kind of catching me in the stage where I am removing the defective area and getting ready to repaint this area. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to blend everything in on this repair.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
Once again, there were some little air bubbles right here. I'll show you that where the paint lifted. There was like one here, then there was a small one here, and then there was another one here. The first thing that I'm doing is I am dry sanding it, and I am using 180 grit right now, but before that I actually used 80 grit to get down and take the air bubbles out. And if you've never came across this problem, believe me, sometime in your span of doing this type of work, you will come across it. So I went ahead and dry sanded it out, and I got the two air bubbles out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and transfer myself to using 400. All right, we're going to go with the 400 wet, and the way that I'm going to do that, I'm going to use a small paint stick, just like that one right there. What I did is I took a paint stick and I broke a little piece off, and what I'll do is I will cut a piece of my paper off, and let me show you how I'm going to do that. We'll go one more time. So we're going to cut this off like this, just a little square. And we want it the same size as the stick itself, and then that way we can wrap it around our stick, and what we got now is a sanding block. When you're sanding with your hand, and you can't feel it, but I can feel a ridge all the way around this. So I'm going to go ahead and take some water, and I'm not going to use a sponge or anything, I'm just going to dip it in the water here, and then by using our paint stick, we'll be able to feather out those edges a lot better. Now what really sucks on this is brand new paint, and I have busted through the clear. And when you bust through the clear, you got to be very, very extra cautious how you paint this, because if you don't put the proper sealant on it, it will blister and create more problems. And that's something that really is a bummer when it comes to this type of a repair. Now, there's only one good thing about this repair, and the good thing is through the whole repair, if we can keep it contained to a minimal like I'm trying to do, the good thing about the repair is that we can use our touch-up spray gun to fix it. We still got a small ridge right in the center. Let me get rid of that ridge. That feels pretty good. Let me see if I can get a little bit more of this out. And the only thing that I want to use the sponge for is to clean the surface off. That's it. I don't want to create a lot of dust and debris that's going to scratch our concourse paint job. So that feels pretty good, except for right here, I can still feel a ridge. Everything else feels feathered out good, except for this area just right here. So let me concentrate on that. And why this happens, I mean, nobody knows that does, though. This is just part of doing this type of work. So when you run into this problem, it is a very, very bad experience and a nightmare, especially if you're giving somebody a buddy deal. Believe me, I am not happy that this happened. This is very, very depressing, and I hate when I have to do this type of work to a car that's already done, and I've been working on it for 2 years. Very, very depressing time. So now that we have got this area, we got the problem solved and it's feathered out, what we need to do now is we need to get some 1500, or a matter of fact, I'm not even going to use 15, I'm going to go with 1200 first. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do it with 1000 first and work my way down to 1500. I want to make sure that our ridge is completely gone. So I'm going to take my 1500, I'm in my 1000, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat my process on that, using the 1000 in the same manner that I was using the 400. It's a process called feathering. We are feathering out all the edges so we can blend. When you have an issue in the corner where two panels meet, this is probably the worst repair that you can do. This is probably the worst place to repair anything. And then for the final sand job, what I'll do is I will take my 1500 and then I will prep my surface up for paint. Now I'm going to go way up here. You can see how far I'm going. And then I'm going to come way over here like this. And then I'm going to come right down to this body line here. And that should be more than enough to do the blend on this, so we can have this car ready for delivery. And you notice I'm using a very sharp, this is a homemade block that I made out of packing material on a body part that I had delivered at one time. And this has a very sharp corner on it. So you can see that I am trying to feather this out through every stage of sanding that I'm doing. one more time with my 1500, and I think we're ready to get this thing painted. All right, now that we have our surface prepped and ready for refinish, literally refinish, what I'm going to use is I'm using some DTM 4:1 high build primer. This is 2K primer, and a lot of you are thinking, you can use epoxy primer on that. Yes, you can use epoxy primer, but the problem is using epoxy primer, you have to wait a minimum of 15 hours, 16 hours before you can apply paint to it, or it will crinkle and blister around the edges. It will have a reaction to the reducer. So when you use 2K primer, this is 100% guaranteed that it'll seal. And if we have any imperfections, remember I had a little ridge. If we have any imperfections, this will also fill that in. Once again, I just want to let you know my gut is wrenching right now. It's twisting. I'm very, very depressed and upset. So if you fall into this predicament, don't think you're the only one that does this. This happens to a lot of people. The difference between my friend Pete and the other guy is I show you my mistakes and the other guy doesn't. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust my spray gun down. And we're going to go ahead and get some primer on this and see what happens. Alright, now that we got our primer on the vehicle, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take my heat gun. And I'm just going to run my heat gun on low. Alright, I got that on low. I'm just going to run my heat gun across that. And all I'm doing is helping this cure a lot quicker so we don't get any blistering. You don't want to keep it on one place. You want to move it around and only use low heat. Do not use high heat. Because what will happen is you'll heat your paint up around the edges, and then you'll really have situations. Alright. Now it's not going to dry using the heat gun because you're actually literally heating up a liquid to a boiling point. But the way that it's going to cure is we're going to take our air hose and you can see it is now dry to the touch. Okay, so that's dry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some 400, and we're not going to get that really wet. We're just going to, that's about it right there. And what I'm going to do is I am going to lightly scuff this down. I'm not going to do it hard. I just want to get the roughness out of the primer. That's it. So we let this dry after we used our heat gun. After we used our heat gun on it and our air tip, tech tip, using our heat gun or air, we let this sit for approximately 30 minutes. Now, if you're using epoxy primer, you can't do this. So that's one of the reasons I use 2K primer. And once again, I'm just lightly sanding that just to feather it out. That's it. And then I also want to get right here Okay. Got a little bit of a wrinkle right here, and it was caused not from reaction, but when I was spraying it on, it went on too thick. So I need to get rid of that. Because I held my spray gun real close like that, and I didn't move it, so what happened is it wrinkled up like almost a run. So I just need to get that out of there, and I think we'll be all right. And now we are ready to go ahead and apply our paint to our situation here. Now this is the problem that I'm looking at, is we got this big of an area and we only got that much space between the overspray and the painting. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring, I was going to go to this body line right here, but I think I'm going to have to take this and actually go a little farther down the line. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my foam tape, and I can see there's a line right there. So I'm removing my foam tape just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll take my 1500 and like I said, I'm going to have to bring it down. It's not enough. The area is too close to the edge and we will have to bring it down. It's turned out to be a bigger repair than I was expecting, and it really sucks. Like I said, this is one of your worst nightmares, being a painter, is when shit like this happens. Okay, before I retake this off, I just want to make sure that I prep my area really nice, because if you don't have it prepped properly, what's going to happen is the paint will peel off. So it's really important to make sure that every square inch is prepped properly. So what we're going to do now is we are going to retape. And the way that I do that is I go ahead and put my paper on in reverse so I can flip it over like that. And what that does, that gives me a soft edge. Like this. Like that. And I'm just putting tape around the edges so when I open the door, the wind won't blow it and hit our paint job. And I think we're ready to go ahead and apply our paint. Okay, I got my paint, and I am going to go ahead and use, what is this here? This is medium. Medium will work. Normally I would use fast reducer, and what fast reducer, it'll make it dry quicker. Medium reducer will work because it's about 90 degrees here, so we don't want it to dry too fast. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up just a little bit of paint, and that's one reason. This is one reason I overbuy on paint when I'm restoring a car. I always buy a minimum of 2 gallons. When I paint a car inside and out, I always buy 2 gallons of paint. I don't care what size car it is. If it's a little baby car versus a big giant car, my minimum. Did you see that? Speaking of minimum, I used very minimum reducer. This is your culprit right here. This is your murderer. This is what can ruin a paint job very quickly, is reducer. Reducer will react. The clear coat will react. You need to learn how to curve your use on reducer when blending or repairing situations like I'm doing. So the reducer that I put in here, just to let everybody know, is approximately 3-to-1 mix. 3 parts paint, 1 part reducer. We don't want our paint to be real thin. Alright, but on the other hand, we don't want it to be real thick. Now, that seems a little thin to me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just add just a little bit more paint. Because I want it to be a good nature thickness, but yet on the other hand, I want it to spray out and flow, and that's what our reducer's for. One thing that I like to do before I lay any paint down is I like to, there we go, I like to take a wipe ball with my air hose and I like to wipe my area off. And what that does, that removes any loose or, what can we say, minor microscopic fragments that might be left behind from sanding. Because when you wet sand like that, once it dries, it turns into a dust. So we want to make sure all those little dust particles are gone. So we're now ready to go ahead and apply our paint. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply this. It's going to look like I'm putting on one coat, but what I'm doing, I'm using the air to dry it as I'm painting. So I'm actually going to apply multiple coats of paint at one time. I'm not going to let it dry in between because I'm using my air from my spray gun to dry it. Let's go ahead and get our paint on there and get her done.
Thanks for watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.